Okay, Rich, so what are we playing this week then?
So this week I thought we'd attempt to complete Probotector 2, Return of the Evil Forces, otherwise known as Super C. So over here in Europe, basically all of the characters in this game were replaced by robots because in Germany they had very strict censorship policies. So they didn't actually allow anyone to shoot humans and such a lot of the time, and it was really frowned upon anyway. So when this game came out in Europe, they replaced everything with robots and changed the names around. Have you got any experience with the game at all?
I've got it on my little mini NES, but I haven't played too much of it.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Do we get to it then?
Let's go for it.
So it's basically the same as the first game in the series in most ways. In the arcades, they actually made a few more changes to the game. So they give you sort of a variable jumping height in the arcade version, but all of that's done away with here. This is one of the sort of newish weapons. You know, so it sort of blows up. Do you remember? Because you remember the flame weapon in the first game. I don't know if you can remember, but it just did this sort of curly thing, didn't it?
I do remember that.
This one's sort of slightly more like Clash. Oh, I was nearly about to
I had
help
to
you
duck
there.
and I couldn't do anything but duck. I was hoping you'd turn around and shoot.
Slightly too late.
Is there any point in me shooting?
Sorted. So as you can see, they've done away with the sort of running into the screen levels of the first game.
Which is a shame, because I quite like them.
Yeah, I like them as well. Actually, a lot of people sort of hate on those levels, from what I've experienced. But yeah, so they've replaced it with these sorts of top-down run and gun gameplay. Really, there's an S there if you want to get that.
Yes, please.
I think it's it's a little bit more accessible, this type of gameplay though, isn't it? I think in the first game the way that it moves was sort of odd, wasn't it? It took a little bit of getting used to, but I did like the gameplay of it. It was sort of more interesting, more unique, wasn't it? You could just sort of stay at the bottom of the screen on this bit.
Yeah, this black part here. Do that. Can't that one a little bit. Careful, careful, careful.
Probably shouldn't be up here, to be honest.
No, I'm not worried.
Yeah, these games actually, they're some of the best arcade ports to the NES as well. They are phenomenal because they made so many improvements to these games, you know, sort of unheard of levels of improvement. I mean, this game originally only had 5 levels, but the in the NES port they put another 3 levels in the game. So this is actually 8 levels long here. And they did the same with the first game as well, if you remember. They sort of lengthened the game up quite a bit. But in the arcades, the screen ratio was like portrait, which is a bit weird for this sort of game as well, really, isn't it? So I do feel like in a lot of ways that these are an improvement on the arcade games.
Thank you.
Right, this section, right, so the ground collapses, so don't get too far ahead because it only collapses in one column, right, so...
Right. I see. B.
That's invincibility. Wait.
I couldn't jump!
Yeah, it does that. Let me go ahead and set this going, and then you can easily just know when there's a problem, can't you? I was getting a bit panicky there. Oh no!
Can I not take your lives?
You can do, yeah.
How? Pressing start.
You gotta press start.
Oh, you dickhead! You scrolled the screen on! You scrolled the screen as I'm dropping!
Nick me bleeding lives and then jump down a
You
pit.
scrolled the screen!
How do you feel about the changes to the characters anyway?
It doesn't really bother me that much. It's just different sprites at the end of the day.
Pretty much, aren't they? I kind of like them, to be honest. I mean,
Robots are cool.
yeah, they're sort of Macross inspired. If anyone's familiar with Macross, the robots look very similar to that on like the cover and such. Yeah, this is the problem with this level, is you should sort of be careful of these things coming out of the ground, you know.
Mouths by the looks of them.
Yeah.
Like that, you mean?
I didn't even see that dude appearing. Do you want, oh, you can't spawn anyway now, can
Nope.
you? That's definitely what I need there.
Let's get the L first, just in case. Oh, well, you know you're not going to get the S afterwards. Oh.
Be in the middle of the screen. I don't want to be there.
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
This boss coming up was actually originally it was the final boss in the game, but in the NES version they created a bunch of more levels, didn't they? Like I was saying. So yeah, this was the end of the game originally.
He's a scary looking motherfucker.
You can sort of tell that he was originally a final boss, can't
No,
you?
definitely. He's got way too much.
They've made it a bit easier though, I think. But yeah, that was originally the final boss. Did you want to spawn?
No, because there's no weapon. There's no point.
There might be one around here somewhere.
As soon as you find one, let me know. Yeah, alright. If I get M first, no, it doesn't matter, does it?
Actually, I'll get an R anyway, so I don't think I've got an R now, have I?
No.
I've lost it. Yeah, I like the robots, I think they're cool. I mean, I do like sort of anime designs anyway, really,
Yeah.
obviously. So I don't have a problem with it at all. Originally, the characters were based on Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, basically, sort of like Rambo and who's the guy from Predator? What's his name?
Dutch.
That's
Dutch
it.
Schaefer.
It's actually a movie you've seen.
It's one of my favourite movies. It's like you asking me a Predator question, I need to know the answer. Because you went so early.
You stopped!
I didn't stop
you
because
literally-
you dropped.
You walked and then you stopped.
I
You got to do
didn't
it now.
stop.
Right, stay in the middle and shoot upwards at it. That's it. Alright, Chris, it's up to you now.
Shit, I had to jump.
Oh well. We're not doing too bad. We've got 2 or 3 continues still left. Right, so we got to be careful about making sure that we both stay on the screen here then. Right.
Right,
ready?
3, 2, 1, go.
Right. This is probably quite a good combination of weapons actually, because this does tons of damage to the circular weapon. And your
I'm
one takes
keeping the other
everything
things
else.
out. We're not even moving. God, if I'd rapid fire now.
This was originally the boss from the jungle level, so they moved that boss over.
That was actually rather easy.
Yeah. Although you struggled a bit without power-ups, didn't you?
Oh, well,
Yeah, it's really nasty if you haven't got the power-ups.
you've got things coming in from the left and right.
Right,
and things
so-
from top.
We're on the final level now, I think, aren't we?
And we still got 2 continues.
Yeah.
Oh, fine then.
I'm not sure how many people worked on this arcade game who worked on the original arcade game, because I know the directors actually, he was different for Super Contra as it was known in the arcades. But the director of this game in the arcades, he actually went on to do Sunset Riders as well, which is another pretty cool run and gun game. Had an excellent port on the Super Nintendo. Oh, right. Yeah, you don't have to duck here, but you cannot jump.
Right. If you jump,
So-
then it hurts you. Yeah?
Actually, this isn't a great place to have this weapon, to be honest.
Just keep on in a duck every time I
Yeah.
see that. Can you slow down?
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. I couldn't turn and shoot because it would have
Yeah.
taken that split second to kill me.
This thing, it keeps coming down while you're jumping sometimes, but so just make sure it's not coming down, then jump across and then stay where we are, make sure it doesn't come down. Right. Oh,
Didn't
no.
jump!
Oh shit!
And I couldn't move because if I stood up I was dead. Which I'm still dead.
Oh no, 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 no!
No, 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 no! Alright.
Blast.
Oh, now I can't shoot it. I say... No, I nearly did. Why can't I move? I couldn't move and I couldn't jump across and now I'm probably dead!
This bit's horrible without Spreadshot. I never realised how bad that bit was without it. Cool, Bennett, that was a debacle.
I wasn't worried. We want to jump this one too. We did definitely want to jump that one too.
I'm going to be glad when this bit's done.
I hate this bit.
I've got decent weapons here, haven't I?
I'm back.
Yeah, so this boss is an exclusive to the NES as well, like I was saying before. It's quite an interesting look to it, really, isn't it? And this boss also sort of made a reappearance in the Super Nintendo Contra game as well. So obviously it's sort of quite a popular design.
Yeah. Did you not duck that? Does it not follow the same path? It never turns.
I don't know.
Yeah, you could probably duck that in that corner there. Not worth taking a chance though, really.
Can't die. Yeah, sorted.
Easy.
I think this is all there is to the ending, actually. Just sort of this helicopter section. And the credits. I think that's it now.
What do you think of the game then, Rich?
I think this is a pretty cool action game. Cool little action game for the NES, isn't it? Really, a lot of what we said in the original Contra video really kind of applies to this game as well, doesn't it? Because it's not really much different in a lot of ways. You know, this is sort of... It doesn't add much to the game, but I mean the core is still fantastic. The action gameplay, the multi-directional firing, all of the fantastic weapons, and the boss fights, good graphics and good music. So everything that was great about Contra is in this game. But other than that, there's just not really that many improvements. Especially when you take into account that this came out 2 whole years after Contra. This is a long time, you know. The original Contra came out quite quickly after the arcade game, but this is 2 years later than the arcade.
Makes you think what they were doing those 2 years, really.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously the main difference with this game though is they've replaced the into the screen sections with run and gun sections, which they do work quite well, don't they? You know,
yeah, but I preferred the into the screen sections.
Yeah, I do personally prefer those as well because they're sort of more unique. But I'd say that these are definitely more accessible than the sections in the other one.
They've been dumbed down.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say that. Yeah, so I think I'm quite positive on this game. I think it is a great game, but I do feel like they sort of rested on their laurels a little bit. So what do you think of the game then?
Yeah, no, just basically exactly what you just said. They did not really improve anything, but it was such a good game to begin with. They kind of didn't really need to improve on anything, did they?
Yeah, there is that.
They improved on maybe the graphical content and the music. That was really good and a bit better than the original Contra, I would say. The boss fights, slightly better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that was originally the final boss, that was quite impressive.
Yeah,
wasn't
that
it?
was cool. And the final boss itself was quite impressive too. Apart from that, it's basically Contra.
Yeah. How do you feel about this in comparison to Midnight Resistance on the C64?
I think I prefer this to Midnight Resistance still. Yeah.
I think that this is less relevant though, in some respects, because Midnight Resistance, at least you've got the strategy of picking different weapons for the levels, and they randomise the weapons and things, so every time you play it you can try and think, I feel this is a lot fairer than Midnight Resistance. So well, you can fire upwards and stuff, isn't it? But the fairer aspects of it were all in the original game, you know. So sure, if I was going to buy a Contra game, I'd just buy the first Contra, then Midnight Resistance, then this afterwards, because I'd feel like I already basically owned this with the first Contra, you know, for the most part, because it just doesn't do anything that new in it. But I feel like it's around par with Midnight Resistance on the C64 personally. I feel like it's more polished than that game, but it also has less ideas in it. Effectively, they sort of balance each other out. Trade-offs, yeah. Okay, Richard, what are you going to score it then? Well, for the reasons I've just stated, basically, I've decided that I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. So I gave the original Contra a 5 out of 5, but this game, I feel like it doesn't. It came out 2 years later, and it doesn't really improve on the first game. There's not 2 years worth of improvements here, basically. So I'm dropping a point off of it. What do you reckon? Yeah, no, exactly the same. You can't give Contra 5 and then this 5 as well, because this is basically Contra, but with
a few minor updates. Okay, guys, that was Probotector 2, Return of the Evil Forces. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, well, I think it's a fun game. You know me. I love these sort of run and gun games, these action games.
Your kind of bread and butter, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, if you liked it, like and subscribe. It always helps us. Give us a comment. Tell us what you think, and we will see you next week with another game. Take care, guys.
See ya.